Errors in your financial model can be totally catastrophic. First, it could cause a company to rely on the wrong information, which can affect their ability to fundraise, their ability to report to their board of directors, or more importantly, they can make the wrong decisions based off of the data that you provided from them. And unfortunately, you are going to be the one responsible if you sign off on a financial model without realizing that there's an error. That's why it's super crucial to develop the proper checks in place in order to audit your financial model. Now, there are a few ways that you can do this. Let's first take a look in our financial model to see if we could find any hard-coded values. So here I'm back on the drivers tab, and I'm going to click find and select, and I'm going to click on go to special, and I'm going to click now on constants. Now, I don't really care about text, but I do care about everything else. And let me go ahead now and click OK. All right. Well, now you can see that I have a bunch of constants over here, which makes sense. But for some reason, I also have these really weird constants over here. And if I click into this cell to the right, I'll see that I have a formula here, but these are completely hard-coded. So this helps me understand that I have an inconsistency. But this second way for developing inconsistencies is probably my favorite. Here, I'm going to select all the information for the row by selecting Shift and space. I'm going to then come down and I'm going to hold down Control and then /. When I do that, look exactly at what happened. I now can see which cells are inconsistent. So it looks like this cell is inconsistent as well as all of these cells over here. Now, these cells prior are consistent, but they're really just referring to a different formula. So this helps me understand that I have a difference in my consistency. So let's just do another check. I'm going to select this information here and press the Control /. And as you can see, no inconsistent cells are found. All right, well now let me do the same thing for all of my projections. I'll select them all and I'll click Control and /. And once again, I see these cells over here which have the inconsistencies. So let me just go ahead and highlight that as such. And let me just study the actual formula. So I could see over here that this is referring to this information, which is an average of 6 months plus 5%. But this over here, for whatever reason, has this hard-coded value, and it then resets as such. Now, these cells appear to be consistent with each other, but once again, they're not consistent with this hard-coded 1500. So that's another trick for how you can develop inconsistencies in your model. But my favorite way to detect errors is via an error check. And that's what brings me to this error check tab. The way this tab is set up is it analyzes every area of my financial model, and if there is an actual error, it'll then send me a flag. So, for example, we know that our balance sheet should never have assets equaling anything other than liabilities plus owner's equity. So if I just come over here and change this, let's say to a 55, notice what happens. I now have a error in my accounting equation, and this cell over here is going to dictate the fact that I have this error. And if I go to my error check tab, I can see that 2 cells in my balance sheet have this error. And every tab on my financial model has this indicator. Hey, stop, you have an error. This makes it really helpful in the event that I'm not on the tab where I made that error, but I still want to be notified. So the first error check that we need to set up is a really simple one. Do assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity? But in reality, there are a lot of other error checks that you need to set up. And it comes down to the way that you transfer data from one location to another. So think of this example. You have a bunch of students who are going on a field trip. They all line up to the bus and the teacher reads off the attendance to make sure that all the students are there. All the students then get onto that bus, you arrive at the field trip, and when those students come off the bus, the teacher, once again, does a roll call. The same thing is true for your financial models. Anytime you pass data from one location to another location, we need to ensure that the information got transferred over correctly. So let me just undo this over here and paste that as such to bring our model back to functioning properly. Now I'm going to go to the income statement tab and I'm going to check on the bottom over here. Now look at what it says for revenue. It's checking the amount that I have dubbed as income over here, and it's comparing it to my drivers tab. And it's saying, if this amount is different, throw me an error. So like we said earlier, this tab should really just be pulling from the drivers tab. If I just change this to a 55, well, now I know that I have an inconsistency. And that is because my revenue no longer matches the amount from my drivers tab, where this actually came from. So when I go to my drivers tab, I could see that indeed December's sales amount is $40,000. If I then go back to my income statement, I see that it's 55. If I then copy over the formula, everything solves itself. So going back to this schema over here like we spoke about, this error check should really be checking all of these tabs. And that's to ensure that the destination of where our data is brought matches to the source of where that data came from. And the way that I set up the error check is actually pretty simple. I have all of my tab names, and then I have a check on the bottom to confirm that everything matches. In the event that it actually matches, I'll say no errors. In the event that it doesn't match, I'll say, hey, there's an error, check at the bottom. And then this over here will confirm whether or not there is an error, which is what we'll then showcase in all of the relevant tabs. I also have a named range over here called error check. That error check refers to this cell over here. So I could just come to the error check, and if I want to just hard code an error over here, I'll let's say 50. Automatically now, everything just changed that we have an error. But I'm going to go ahead and keep that dynamic. So as a refresher, error checks are really crucial for your financial models. You'll want to set up an error check tab that checks a number of different locations to confirm that the data matches between the source and the destination. But you could also set up a few other error checks, like making sure that your balance sheet ties. But in addition to error checks, you'll also want to make sure that you're aware of any inconsistencies. And you can do that by clicking the Go To Special dialog box to then filter on any constants. Additionally, you can hit the Control and / in order to see any irregular information. And now that we're familiar with error checks, let's talk about color coding.